Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you will be fine. Life is suffering, and to understand it deeply is to realize that existence itself is an unending series of burdens, but also of opportunities. If you do not confront this truth, you remain weak, and weakness invites chaos. You must accept that suffering is not an anomaly, but a fundamental part of life. It is the price you pay for being conscious, for being aware of the tragedy inherent in existence. But within this suffering lies the potential for growth. If you shoulder your burdens willingly, you can transform them into meaning. The second truth is that meaning is not given, it is created. People who search for happiness often find themselves lost, because happiness is fleeting. It is shallow, conditional, and easily disturbed. Instead, one must pursue meaning. For meaning is what sustains you when happiness abandons you. Meaning is found in responsibility, in taking on the weight of your own life, and if you are courageous enough, the lives of others as well. The third truth is that you must tell the truth. Deception, especially self-deception, leads to misery. Lies build fortresses of illusion that will crumble under the weight of reality. The world is structured in such a way that what is false collapses, and when it does so catastrophically. Speak the truth, not because it is easy, but because it fortifies your soul against corruption. The fourth truth is that order and chaos are the twin forces that shape existence. Order is stability, tradition, and structure. Chaos is possibility, transformation, and the unknown. You need both, but you must walk the line between them carefully. Too much order leads to tyranny, while too much chaos results in despair. The balance is what allows you to build a life that is structured yet adaptable. The fifth truth is that you must aim at something. A person without an aim drifts, and to drift is to decay. Pick the highest, most noble target you can conceive and strive towards it. You will fail often, but failure in the pursuit of something meaningful is infinitely better than meaningless comfort. A goal gives you direction, and direction gives you purpose. The sixth truth is that competence is necessary. It is not enough to be kind, you must also be capable. Strength, both mental and physical, is what enables you to protect what matters. If you are weak, you are at the mercy of those who are strong, and not all who are strong are benevolent. Train yourself to be formidable, so that your kindness is not born of necessity, but of choice. The seventh truth is that resentment is poison. Life will wrong you. People will betray you. Circumstances will be unfair. But if you allow resentment to take root, it will consume you. The world does not owe you fairness. It is your responsibility to rise above injustice, not to let it define you. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is the refusal to be shackled by the past. The eighth truth is that discipline is freedom. The more disciplined you are, the more control you have over your life. Freedom without discipline is chaos. It is indulgence without purpose, pleasure without fulfillment. The disciplined individual is the one who can resist temptation, who can endure hardship, who can achieve greatness, because they do not succumb to ease. The ninth truth is that you must choose your words carefully. Words shape reality. They are not just sounds. They are forces that can build or destroy. Speak with precision. Do not say things that make you weak. Do not engage in idle speech. What you say should be aligned with what you believe, and what you believe should be aligned with the highest possible good. The 10th truth is that suffering shared is suffering diminished. Isolation amplifies pain. When you suffer, reach out. Build relationships that are founded on trust, and allow yourself to be vulnerable. People are imperfect, but connection is necessary. True strength comes from being able to rely on others and allowing them to rely on you in return. The 11th truth is that you must respect yourself. If you do not respect yourself, no one else will. Set standards for your life. Do not tolerate mistreatment, but also do not demand more respect than you have earned. Carry yourself with dignity. Act in a way that makes your future self proud. If you do not hold yourself to high standards, the world will impose its own standards upon you, and they may not be kind. The 12th truth is that you must embrace the burden of existence with courage. Life is difficult. It is filled with suffering, uncertainty, and loss. But within that suffering is the potential for greatness. The highest virtue is not to avoid struggle, but to face it head on, to endure it with dignity, and to emerge stronger. Take responsibility. Speak the truth. Set your house in order and carry the heaviest load you can bear, because the weight you lift is the measure of your worth. Life is suffering. That is the fundamental truth that no amount of denial can erase. To exist is to be burdened by tragedy, pain, and inevitable loss. The world is structured in such a way that suffering is not merely an unfortunate byproduct, but an inescapable reality. People become ill, loved ones pass away, dreams collapse under the weight of failure, and injustice seeps into the very fabric of society. But the crucial question is not whether suffering exists, it does, but rather, what should we do in the face of it? The first mistake is to resent suffering, to grow bitter, to curse existence itself, to reject responsibility and descend into nihilism. This path leads to darkness. It is the mindset of the person who believes life is unfair, that they have been uniquely targeted by misfortune, and that the world owes them something in return. But this attitude only breeds more suffering. It festers into resentment, turns into anger, and eventually corrupts the soul. It is the philosophy of the tyrant, the murderer, and the destroyer. And history has shown us time and time again where that road leads. The alternative, the path forward, is to recognize that suffering is the price of existence, but also the catalyst for growth. When we suffer, we are confronted with the harsh realities of life, but in that confrontation, there is also an opportunity to transform ourselves. The struggle itself is what shapes us. The person who has never known hardship is weak. They have no resilience, no strength, no understanding of the true depths of human existence. It is only through facing adversity, through enduring pain and overcoming obstacles, that we develop the character necessary to bear the weight of life. Consider the hero's journey, a narrative pattern as old as civilization itself. The hero begins in comfort but is soon thrust into chaos, into suffering, into the unknown. They are tested, beaten down, often on the brink of despair, but in the depths of that suffering they find something: courage, wisdom, responsibility. They do not remain victims of their suffering. They transcend it, and in doing so they return to the world stronger, more capable, and better prepared to help others do the same. This is the essence of meaningful existence. So, what does this mean for you? It means that when suffering comes, and it will, you must not run from it. You must not allow it to make you weak or cynical. Instead, you must use it. You must face it voluntarily, accept it as part of life, and ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I become stronger because of it? If you take on suffering willingly, if you bear your burden and refuse to succumb to despair, you will find that suffering is not just an affliction, it is a forge. And through that forge, if you allow it, you can emerge as something greater than you were before. Happiness is a fleeting, unreliable phenomenon. It comes and goes, often dictated by circumstances beyond our control, our health, our finances, the approval of others, even the weather. If happiness is our highest goal, we are setting ourselves up for failure, because the world does not bend itself to our desires. Life is too complex, too unpredictable, and too filled with suffering to allow for a permanent state of happiness. And if we make happiness our primary pursuit, we will be left disillusioned, resentful, and lost when it inevitably escapes our grasp. Meaning, on the other hand, is something far deeper and more stable. Meaning is what sustains us through suffering. It is what gives our struggles purpose, transforming pain from something merely to be endured into something that fortifies us, shapes us, and pushes us towards something greater. If you orient yourself toward meaning instead of happiness, you will find that even in the darkest moments, perhaps especially in the darkest moments, you have something to hold on to. Think about the people you admire most. Are they the ones who have led lives of unbroken comfort and pleasure? Are they the ones who chased happiness above all else? Of course not. The most admirable individuals, the ones who inspire us, are those who took on responsibility, who faced tremendous hardship without breaking, who built something meaningful despite suffering, parents who sacrifice for their children, soldiers who protect the vulnerable, great thinkers who struggled with profound truths. These are not people who sought happiness as their highest aim. They sought meaning, and in doing so, they found something far greater. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the horrors of Auschwitz, wrote about this distinction in Man's Search for Meaning. He observed that in the concentration camps, those who survived were often not the strongest or the healthiest, but those who had a reason to live. Those who had meaning, a loved one to reunite with, a purpose beyond the present suffering. Those who sought happiness in such a hellish place were doomed because there was no happiness to be found. But those who clung to meaning had the strength to endure. This is true for all of us, even outside of extreme circumstances. If you aim for happiness, you will crumble when life becomes difficult. when you lose a job, when illness strikes, when betrayal wounds you. But if you aim for meaning, you can bear those hardships because they do not define your existence. Instead, they become part of the struggle that shapes you into something stronger. So what does this mean practically? It means that instead of asking, what will make me happy, you should ask, what is worth the suffering? What goal, what responsibility, what pursuit gives life enough meaning that you are willing to endure difficulty for its sake? That is the path to a life not of shallow pleasure, but of deep and lasting fulfillment. Meaning does not abandon you when happiness fades. It carries you through the storm, and in the end, it transforms you into something greater. Truth is the foundation upon which a stable and meaningful life is built. Without truth, everything collapses. Our character, our relationships, even the very structure of society. People think they can get away with deception, that they can twist reality to suit their desires, that they can manipulate facts without consequence. But reality is unforgiving. The more you lie, the more fragile you become, the more chaos you invite into your life, and the more suffering you ensure for yourself and those around you. Lies are corrosive. They erode the soul piece by piece until nothing remains but a hollow shell of the person you once were. And it starts small. You tell yourself a little lie about who you are, about what you want, about what you believe. Maybe you do it to avoid conflict, to escape responsibility, to make things easier in the moment. But that lie demands another to sustain it, and another after that. Before long, you're no longer the one telling the lie. The lie is telling you. You don't even know who you are anymore, because you've buried yourself under layers of deception. And here's something crucial. You cannot lie to yourself without consequence. People think they can deceive themselves, that they can ignore their conscience, suppress their doubts, and force themselves to believe whatever is convenient. But deep down, they know the truth. And when you act in a way that contradicts what you truly know to be right, you weaken yourself. You start to feel ashamed, anxious, uncertain. You lose confidence, and worse, you lose your ability to trust yourself. If you can't trust yourself, how can anyone else trust you? How can you stand firm in the world if even you know you're full of contradictions? Integrity is the antidote. Integrity means aligning your words and actions with what you know to be true, even when it's difficult, even when it costs you something in the short term. Integrity makes you strong because it grounds you in reality. When you tell the truth, especially when it's hard, you reinforce your character. You become someone reliable, someone who can be counted on, someone who stands firm when the world shakes. And this has immense practical consequences. If you are honest in your relationships, they will be built on trust rather than illusion. If you are honest in your work, you will build something of real value rather than a house of cards. If you are honest with yourself, you will know who you are, what you believe, and what you must do to move forward. Truth is not just a moral obligation, it is a survival strategy. Lies lead to chaos, disintegration, and suffering. Truth leads to strength, order, and meaning. And so the choice is clear. Speak the truth, act with integrity, and become someone capable of facing life as it is, not as you wish it to be, but as it truly is. Because only in truth can you build something that will endure. Life exists on the border between order and chaos. Too much order and you are trapped in rigidity, in stagnation, in a predictable but lifeless existence. Too much chaos and you are lost, adrift in uncertainty, unable to find your footing, unable to build anything meaningful. The challenge of life is to walk the line between the two, to find the balance where stability and growth coexist. Order is the known, the predictable, the safe. It's the routines you follow, the traditions you uphold, the structures that provide a foundation for your life. Without order, you cannot function. You wouldn't be able to get out of bed in the morning, to hold down a job, to build relationships that last. Society itself depends on order, on laws, rules, and shared values that prevent civilization from collapsing into anarchy. But order alone is not enough. If everything is perfectly ordered, then nothing changes. There is no room for innovation, no space for individuality, no possibility of improvement. Order, taken to its extreme, becomes tyranny. It suffocates. It demands conformity at the cost of freedom. The authoritarian state, the oppressive workplace, the lifeless routine that drains you of meaning. These are all manifestations of too much order. Chaos, on the other hand, is the unknown. It is the realm of possibility, the place where new ideas emerge, where transformation occurs. Chaos is what allows us to grow, to adapt, to move forward. Every meaningful achievement, every great discovery, every moment of personal development begins with a step into chaos. into the unpredictable, the difficult, the uncertain. But chaos is also dangerous. It is suffering, destruction, and dissolution. If you let chaos consume you, you become lost. You become anxious, unstable, paralyzed by the overwhelming nature of the unknown. A person drowning in chaos lacks discipline, lacks direction, lacks the ability to build something meaningful. In the extreme, chaos is the breakdown of everything. It's addiction, it's despair, it's a life spiraling out of control. The challenge then is to exist at the edge of order and chaos. That is where meaning is found. You must have enough order to provide stability, but enough chaos to allow for growth. Think of a conversation. If it's too ordered, it's boring, repetitive, predictable. But if it's pure chaos, it's incoherent. The best conversations are the ones that balance structure with spontaneity. Life is no different. If you stay too long in order, you become stagnant. If you fall too deeply into chaos, you are overwhelmed. The goal is to walk the narrow path in between, to create order out of chaos without letting that order become a prison. That is what it means to truly live, to be stable enough to stand firm, but flexible enough to adapt, to have enough security to feel safe, but enough adventure to feel alive. That is the balance, and it is there, in that space, that you find purpose, growth, and meaning. People often think of freedom as the absence of constraints, the ability to do whatever they want whenever they want, but this is a childish illusion. True freedom is not the rejection of responsibility, not the avoidance of structure, and certainly not the indulgence of every fleeting desire. That is not freedom. That is chaos, and chaos enslaves. The person who cannot control their impulses, who drifts without purpose, who refuses to impose discipline upon themselves, they are not free. They are at the mercy of their emotions, their weaknesses, and the external world. True freedom is earned through discipline. Discipline is the act of voluntarily placing constraints on yourself. It is choosing to wake up early when you could sleep in, to study when you could be distracted, to work when you could be idle. It is the recognition that structure, commitment, and sacrifice are not limitations, but the very conditions that make freedom possible. If you cannot say no to yourself, no to procrastination, no to temptation, no to comfort when effort is required, then you are not in control of your own life. And if you are not in control, someone or something else will be. Take, for example, the person who has no discipline with money. They spend impulsively, refuse to budget, ignore financial responsibility. In the moment, this might feel like freedom, spending whatever they want without restriction. But what happens in the long run? They end up in debt, trapped by financial burdens, unable to make meaningful choices because they are now bound by their past decisions. What seemed like freedom was in fact the opposite, enslavement to their own lack of control. Or consider physical health. A person who eats whatever they want, whenever they want, who refuses to exercise because it feels like too much effort, they are not free. They are slowly destroying their own body, becoming weaker, sicker, more dependent on medications, on doctors, on others to take care of them. They have traded the short-term illusion of freedom for long-term suffering. The person who disciplines themselves, who exercises daily, who eats properly, who sacrifices immediate pleasure for lasting strength, that person has real freedom, the freedom to move, to be independent, to live without constant pain and illness. This principle applies to every aspect of life. A musician who practices every day has the freedom to play with skill. A writer who disciplines themselves to write consistently has the freedom to create great works. A person who trains their mind through study has the freedom to think clearly and act wisely. So discipline is not the opposite of freedom, it is the prerequisite for it. The more disciplined you are, the more control you have over your own life, and the more control you have, the more real choices you can make. Those who reject discipline because they seek freedom will find neither. But those who embrace discipline will discover that, in the end, it is the only path to true and lasting freedom. Life is difficult. That is an undeniable truth. There will be suffering, disappointment, and hardship. No one escapes it. The question is not whether life will be hard, but how you will respond to that reality. And the answer, the only answer that leads to meaning rather than despair, is responsibility. Responsibility is what gives life depth. It is what anchors you when everything falls apart. People often chase happiness, but happiness is unreliable. It comes and goes, often dictated by things beyond your control. But meaning Meaning is something different. Meaning is what sustains you through suffering, and meaning is found in responsibility. What does responsibility mean? It means voluntarily taking on the heaviest burden you can bear. It means looking at the world with all its tragedy and injustice and saying, I will do my part to make it better. It means accepting that life is unfair, that pain is inevitable, and still choosing to stand up straight, to take on duties, to carry weight that is not only your own. A life without responsibility is a shallow life. People who reject responsibility often do so in the name of freedom. They want to live without obligation, without commitment, without burden. But this is a lie. A person who refuses responsibility is not free. They are adrift. They lack purpose, they lack direction, and they find themselves overwhelmed by chaos. The person who refuses to take responsibility for their own life inevitably becomes bitter, blaming the world, blaming others, blaming existence itself for their suffering. But resentment is a dead end. It leads nowhere but deeper into misery. Now, contrast this with the person who willingly takes on responsibility. They build something, they create a family, they pursue meaningful work, they support those around them, and through that they find purpose. They find fulfillment not in fleeting pleasure, but in the deep satisfaction of knowing they are needed, that they are contributing, that their life has weight. A father who provides for his children, a mother who nurtures her family, a worker who does their job with integrity. These are people who carry burdens, but in doing so they create meaning. And responsibility does not just serve others, it transforms you. The more responsibility you take on, the stronger you become. You develop competence, resilience, and wisdom. You become someone others can rely on, someone who can navigate life's inevitable difficulties. This is not a burden to be avoided, it is a privilege. It is the path to becoming the kind of person who can withstand the storms of life rather than being swept away by them. So, if you find yourself lost, aimless, uncertain about your purpose, start with responsibility. Look around and ask, where am I needed? What can I do to make things better? Take on that challenge, carry that weight, and in doing so you will discover something far greater than happiness. You will discover meaning. And meaning is what will sustain you no matter how hard life becomes. The truth of life is not a simple or comfortable thing to face. It's often chaotic, unpredictable, and harsh. But it's also rich with meaning, potential, and opportunity. To confront the truth, we must take responsibility for our actions, our suffering, and our existence. We must be willing to look into the depths of life's struggles and not turn away in fear or resignation. It's through this confrontation with the harsh realities of life, paired with a deep commitment to responsibility, that we create order from chaos. Only when we embrace the complexity of life with all its burdens and blessings can we begin to shape a meaningful existence. So stand tall, face the truth, and take action. Only then can we move beyond mere survival into the realm of a life truly worth living.